Welcome to the Hell Has an Exit podcast with host Teddy Tarantino. New episodes every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget to subscribe.
All right. Hey, welcome to Hell Has an Exit. I'm your host, Bryan, and today I have Katherine F. How's it going?
Hi.
Where are you normally from?
I was born in Houston.
Okay.
But I was raised in southern West Virginia.
Like the country accent. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Twang.
So you have 4 years clean. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I posted your before and after pictures. They're incredible. It's really cool to see that.
The transformation.
Yeah, because I got clean so young, so I don't have a lot of pictures of me using. I have one picture of me using. But it is cool for people to see, so that way they see oh, wow, it's possible, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I didn't get clean when I was young. I got clean when I was a little bit older. And I started using when I was young, though. I was probably 15 when I started using drugs. And it was because I was prescribed opiates. But the hardcore using came at 16 and 17.
What was growing up like your childhood? You have siblings?
I do. Growing up was good. I came from a good home, coal miner's granddaughter. But my grandparents adopted me when I was 7. And my mom had 2 younger brothers. I had my brother that is 7 years younger than me that's still living in West Virginia. And I had a brother that was 12 years younger than me that died actually 5 years ago today from a heroin and fentanyl overdose.
So he also used? Did you guys use together?
No. And I think that they didn't know he was using or they didn't see his use because they were so focused on me. My drug addiction was so out of hand.
They didn't expect it from him?
They didn't expect it from him, but he also would mask it with mental health issues, like depression and anxiety. And so when something was happening, it was always, I feel well, I'm overwhelmed, and he was masking it. And they were so focused on me and my attributes to my addiction and the things that I was doing that he wasn't doing, like robbing and stealing and, staying out all night and those things. He didn't do that.
So you had a normal childhood. What caused you to start using, at 15, 16?
So I was introduced to opiates. I was a cheerleader, and I broke my hand tumbling down the floor. And the bone came out of my hand, and I had to have reconstructive surgery, and they put pins and plates in, and they prescribed me opiates.
Up until then, no behavioral issues, nothing?
I wouldn't say that. I think that I was raised in a really good home, really loving family, good morals, good values. And I was always my ego was always stroked. I was the only girl. I had all brothers. I had mostly boy cousins, except for a little older cousins. But it was good girl. You're so pretty. You can be anything you want to be. And nobody ever said if you make poor choices, you're going to suffer poor consequences. Nobody ever said if you get high, you could become a dope fiend. Nobody ever said if you're not careful, you're going to go down the wrong path. And I think when they stopped stroking my ego and I'd stopped getting that attention, then I think I started acting out on behaviors. So I started rebelling. My first addiction was probably attention. I was starving for attention. I wanted my mom to come with me to my cheerleading games, and she couldn't come because I had 2 younger brothers. I wanted, my biological father left before I was born. So I always wanted the attention of a man. I had my stepfather who raised me from 6 months of age. And when him and my mom divorced, our relationship became estranged. It was more distant than I was used to and that I wanted. And I started dating at 15. I went from playing Barbies to within a few weeks, sneaking out my bedroom window. And my mom didn't know what was going on. And I remember sneaking out the bedroom window to go meet this boy when I was 15. And I would leave the bolt undone on the door downstairs so I could come back in. One day I came back and the door was locked. So I tried to shimmy back up. I had this 9-foot brick wall around my house. I tried to shimmy back up the brick wall and get my window. And there was nails stuck in the side of my window. She had nailed my window shut.
Wow.
So I had to go downstairs and knock on the door. And she proceeded to kick my ass. She was like, "You're not going to do this. You're not sneaking in and out of my house." And the rebellion started. It was horrible. I'm sneaking out. I'm sneaking guys in. Well, I won't sneak out then. I'll just have them sneak in. And she caught me and my friend with 2 guys up in my bedroom. And I'm still in her car. She had a big conversion van. And we had this fence alongside where she parked it. And I didn't know how to drive a conversion van. And I remember like pulling the van out and taking the whole side of the fence off with the side of the van. And I pulled it back in and parked it and went back in the house real quick. And she came out and she's like, "You wrecked my car." I'm like, "No, I didn't." So I became addicted to lying, and then the drugs started really bad. So the boy broke up with me. He got my virginity. He broke up with me. And I decided I was going to find me another boyfriend. So I went and got an older boyfriend. And I moved in with him. And I was going to high school, and I'm getting on the bus from his house. He's giving me like $1 for lunch every day. And I found out I was pregnant. And I came back, and he was like, "It's not mine." I'm like, "Whose is it? Like, if it's not yours, whose is it?" And so I called my mom. And at that point, I was like...
It was like 16?
I was 17.
Okay.
I was 17 at this point. And I called, and I was like, "Mom, I'm pregnant." And she was like, "Well, you can't have a baby and come home. You have to have an abortion." So I wasn't cheering because I had broke my hand and I couldn't tumble anymore. And I was hanging out with the wrong people. I'm doing the wrong thing. And I'm from West Virginia. So like pill mills were everywhere. We had like more prescriptions to opiates than we had people in the state. It was crazy up there. Oh my God. Back then it was like the 80s, the green 80s, and everybody had them. And I remember after my abortion, like there was such a feeling of helplessness and hopelessness and pain and shame and guilt. And like, I just wanted to like numb that pain. And my mom didn't understand. She thought, what was I doing getting pregnant? The boy wasn't claiming it. And I really had no one. I had no one to go to and talk about how I felt that wanted to listen. And I remember hanging out with some people. And, we did Boone's Farm. We would like go in the, that's like, you're not that old. We would go in the gas station. It's like this big cheap wine. You ever heard of Mad Dog 2020? Okay. Mad Dog 2020, Boone's Farm, Sky, Blue, vodka, like drinks. Like those were all in the gas station. So we would go in and steal those because we could get to them. We weren't old enough to buy liquor yet. And moonshine. I don't know if you've ever been to West Virginia, but we're known for our moonshine. Okay. And, drinking became like the way of life. And then when you mix it with pain pills, it was just like this feeling. And it wasn't out of control, so to say, at first. But then I was like getting ready to supposedly graduate high school. And my mom had to like write research papers for me. Like I wasn't passing. I wasn't getting through anything. And they were going to expel me. And my mom was like, we'll get her out of here. The day after I graduated high school, my family thought like a geographical change would be the answer. And my grandmother had moved to Florida because my aunt had a brain tumor. So they were going to Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa. And they drove up and got me. And I walked across the stage and I got this empty diploma case because I didn't have enough credits where I had been like suspended so much in high school that I came to Florida and I had to do summer school here in order to get my high school diploma. So they brought me from southern West Virginia to Florida. And it was so different, like the culture and the way of life and the drugs. Like you can't take someone from West Virginia and bring them to Florida and expect there to not be anything for them to get high on. So I got to Florida and I went to summer school and I was able to meet people in summer school. So that was like the key to my, getting out and getting more. And I'm smoking weed, I'm doing pain pills, I'm drinking alcohol. And at 18, in West Virginia, my stepdad was prosecuting attorney. So I never got in trouble. It was always like,
in
you all need... No, in West Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. They were like, you need to come and get her, and I'd get in trouble and they'd like take away my privileges and I'd rebel and sneak out, but I never got in trouble legally. But when I got to Florida, it was like that December. So I'm in summer school and like the following December, I got arrested. I was getting ready to go back to West Virginia and the drugs were a lot cheaper here.
Yeah, because the painkillers are way cheaper here.
The painkillers, the weed, the cocaine, everything. You could buy like an ounce of cocaine for $800 and take it up there and sell it to the dope boys for like $1,600. I flip my money, So I'm going to take some weed up there. And I pull into the Jamaican Club in Avon Park, Florida. And It was a reverse sting operation. And the police come up to my car and he knocks on my window and he's like, "What you want? You want weed?" And I'm like, "No, I'm straight. I got some weed."
Oh, wow.
And he slaps a handcuff on me and they pull me out. My car's packed down. I've got weed on me. And I'm getting ready to take this trip. I got a cooler full of food to take across the country with me. And I went to jail. But my badass thought I could fight the police. And so I went to jail with like black eyes. That's what the mugshot was that you saw me when I said I was arrested when I was 18. That was from the reverse sting operation.
That's your first arrest.
That's my first arrest. And
so at that time, are you thinking like, I need to get my life together? Or are you just like, this isn't a big deal? Like bad luck, whatever?
No, not even bad luck. Like, damn, I got caught. I'll have to be slicker next time. And pretrial intervention. So I started off very young learning to manipulate the system. Like at 18, well, I'll just pass drug tests and I'll do whatever community service hours they want me to do and I'll get off. And it just didn't work out that way. Like I did complete the pretrial intervention, but after that, it was just like this downward spiral. I was arrested 28 times. I've been to maximum security prison twice. And it's all been drug charges. So I went back to West Virginia. And when I went back to West Virginia, let me back.
Yeah, I want to hear the whole story.
Okay.
We got time.
So I'm in Florida. My grandmother's getting ready to go on a trip across country. And I'm dating this guy who was a drug dealer. And he sells crack. And I have never done crack, but he's snorting powder. So we start snorting powder while he's selling crack. And after my grandmother left to go across country on her little RV trip, I moved in with him at his grandmother's house. And his grandmother said, "You can't live here if you're not married."
What?
And, where am I supposed to go? My grandma's gone. I don't have the key to her house. So we went to the courthouse and got married.
That's crazy.
And it was like a marriage of convenience. I'm sure people do it all the time, right? And it got very abusive. Like, I remember, he shot me in the foot, and I remember going to the hospital and telling him I shot myself cleaning the gun.
What? He shot you in the foot? What were you doing? Like
arguing, running my mouth, and it was like a 22. After he shot me in the foot, the relationship took a really bad turn for the worse. He became very abusive.
You would think.
I thought, he just made a mistake.
Like it would get better from there.
I thought, you try to give people a chance.
Was he apologetic?
Yeah. I mean, it was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. And then I think maybe I did convince myself that I did it to myself.
Gotcha.
I don't know, because at this point I'm getting high. At this point now I'm on cocaine, I'm on painkillers, I'm on Xanax, I'm on weed, I'm on alcohol. And I used to drink big gallons of liquor a day.
Wow.
And I'm 19. I don't know. Hurricane Floyd. You can look it up. I don't know exactly when it was, but he had hit me and I could stick my tongue through my top and bottom lip at the same time. And I remember sticking my tongue through my lip in the mirror and thinking, this is not going to work. This relationship is not going to work. This marriage is not going to work. And Hurricane Floyd was coming through Central Florida. And I remember packing up. I had a 1993 Chevrolet Cavalier with rims on it. And I remember packing everything up and going behind Hurricane Floyd back to West Virginia. Still married, didn't care. It was just I'm gone. Well, his sister called and was like, "You're not coming back, are you?" And I'm like, "Why would you say that?" And she was like, "You took the Q-tips." She's like, "You didn't leave anything." It's like, "I don't plan on coming back, no." And I went back to West Virginia. My mom was still up there. And I started dating a guy that I had went through kindergarten, high school, everything with. And we graduated the same year. His name was Gangster Frank.
Okay.
And Gangster Frank was selling drugs. And now we're really selling drugs. We've got ounces in the house. He's cooking up his own crack.
So he's way more of a drug dealer than the other guy?
Yeah, because this guy was buying 100 slab and selling 10 dimes off of it or something, buying 100 slab for $50 and making, 120 off of it. This guy's selling ounces. He's buying a quarter key. And so he had a son, and the son was taken because the mother was on drugs. His mother had custody of the son, and she worked on the road. So I stayed and kept the son, and the mother would go off to work, and he would go sell drugs. So at this point, I'm on blues heavy. We're on 20s and 40s. It wasn't blues yet. 20s and 40s and 80s. And and powder cocaine. And I'm snorting so much powder that I can't stop snorting because my nose burns. Like you can stick a string up my nose today and pull it out the other side. Like I have the deviated septum going on. I whistle in my sleep. It's, really attractive.
Yeah, I've had like 3 surgeries from when I had I'm still super nasally. Like sometimes on the podcast, people be like, "Oh, he's still doing drugs," because I'm still like sniffing a lot. But
they don't realize the snot will come down this side and then come out this side.
Well, when I went to go get like an X-ray, I remember I was clean like 10 years already, and they were like concerned. They're like, "Sir, we found something in your X-ray, and like your left nasal passage is like totally gone." And I was like, "Okay," and they're like, "Well, we only see this in drug addicts." And they thought like I was still using. I was like, oh, well, I used to be a drug addict. But like, yeah, my left nasal is like, because that's the one I usually used, is like so messed up. And then, I really struggle with like breathing, and I get congested so easily. And even after, I think I've had 2 surgeries. After 2 surgeries, it's still not like that much better.
Yeah, I don't even want to do the surgery.
Yeah. I mean, if you can breathe.
Yeah, it's kind of like my little trophy,
yeah, there you go.
Like I survived.
Yeah.
So, I'm with him and we're snorting like Bonnie and Clyde, like, we're whatever you can think. We're just out there. And I've got the kid and he's not coming home, and I go to look for him and he's with his baby mama. And I thought, you want to be the rockhead? Like, we hated crackheads. Like, they knocked on the door all night. They woke us up with like $3.13. Like, oh yeah, I need something until tomorrow, and I'll pay. Like I hated crackheads. And I was devastated. Like, you're out sleeping with her and she's a crackhead, and you tell me you hate her because she lost your son, and I'm here taking care of your son, and this is the thanks I get. Like, I couldn't fathom it. I couldn't like process it. So I went into his room and I stole all the crack. And I left, and I went to, because we own property there, I went to the house that we had, and I proceeded to smoke crack. And I thought, you want to be with a crackhead?
Wow.
I'll be a crackhead. I'll show you.
So you started smoking to spite him?
In spite him. Like, I went and holed up in this house that had burnt down. Like, it was, the house had went under massive destruction, like through a fire. So there's like no windows upstairs. There's like plywood on some of the doors, and I'm in there like smoking crack. And his mom needed me to babysit. So his mom, sorry if you see the podcast, his mom was like stealing his dope and his money to give it to me to keep me there, stealing pills from him. And then his relationship and my relationship was toxic. Now, mind you, I'm still married to the guy in Florida. And I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm smoking crack all day, every day. I'm barely eating. I'm not sleeping. I'm up for weeks at a time. And I called my mom and I'm like, I need to come. My mom had moved to Florida at this point. And I was like, I need to come to Florida. I need you to, get me a plane ticket. And she did. And I told him that I'm going to Florida. And I got out of his truck, and I don't remember, but we were fighting. I had braids, like extensions in my hair, braided down like box braids. And I got out of the truck and I proceeded to cross the road, and he ran me over with the truck from foot to head.
You got ran over with a truck?
With a Chevrolet Blazer, yeah. It's February 15th, 2002. And I'm laying in
the snow?
In the road, in the snow for dead. And like the neighbor's dog found me or something. And he left because he had all these dope on him and stuff. So he drove off, and then I think he came back to the scene. And there was a witness, and they said that I had jumped in front of the car and that he had ran me over and he took off, and like they really didn't know what was going on. I can't tell you what went on. I was high and ran over, like there was some trauma there. But I woke up in the hospital days later. I think it was like 7 or 9 days later, out of a coma. So I had like
damn, he ran you over and put you in a coma?
He put me in a coma. So not only did he put me in a coma, but I have like a scar down my stomach where he busted open my small intestine. I had a perforated bowel. So they had to cut me open and do an emergency bowel section, and they took out half my small intestine and they sewed me back up. And I had like cracked ribs and a dislocated shoulder and a sprained knee, and it was crazy. Like I was told I was told to never walk again.
Wow.
And then I had those extensions in my hair, and they had wrapped around the axle of the truck.
No.
So I have these big bald spots on my head, big open wounds.
What?
And I'm on a respirator. I'm like on life support.
If you got back with this guy, I'm gonna freak out.
Oh my God, wait. Don't freak out yet. So my mom comes and gets me or comes to West Virginia and puts me in a wheelchair. They let me out of the hospital and back up. So I'm in the hospital and I needed to get high. And I called him and he brought me drugs to the hospital. And I remember getting high in the hospital and like I was fiending so bad. I needed that so bad that I called him. And then I remember there was a guy in the car with him that worked at the hospital. And he worked in dietary. And my mom found BBs in my food, in the hospital food.
What do you mean BBs?
I don't know, but my mom said she found BBs in the food.
Like a BB gun BB?
Like a BB gun BB.
Uh-huh.
And she was like adamant that they were trying to kill me. Yeah, like if I would have swallowed that, it went through my intestine. Like they didn't want me to be a witness.
Wow.
And I remember the police came and talked to me and I couldn't tell them anything. Not only could I not tell them anything, but I had two little brothers and I didn't want to be like the snitch because in West Virginia, there was this like saying like snitches end up in ditches. And I didn't want to be that girl. I didn't want to be the one that like talked, you know, like that's against street code. And my mom came to get me and she took me to the house that we had. And when I was ran over, I had 2 pill bottles on me. And when I came out of the hospital, I didn't have them and I wasn't charged with them. So I went like on this hunt looking for my drugs. And the neighbors had taken them. And when I called them, they gave them back to me. So I always
What a good neighbor.
What a good neighbor. Like State Farm, you know?
You just never know when an angel's going to be there.
So they give me back both. Nothing was gone.
That's amazing.
And 1 pill bottle is like all recooked crack. Okay? Like I always recooked all my crack. Like I had to have that strong shit.
You would recook your crack?
Like I would take my crack and put it in a spoon with water or put it in a pot, but I wanted it to be like freebase, like pure. Like when you hit it, it runs down the stem. Like you can hit it like 30 times. It's so strong. Like I didn't want that watered down shit.
Wait. How do you? I've never heard of this. How do you? What's the process of recooking it?
So it gets any impurities out. It makes it much stronger.
So you would put it in the spoon, get a lighter, and just heat it up and cool it down.
No. You put it in a spoon with water.
Yeah.
You put the crack in there, and then you heat it up, and you take something and you whip it up, and then you can see all the impurities and the cut
bottom.
And stuff come out. Yeah, and you get just the pure.
But it's such a little piece that comes out.
Well, then we would use mason jars.
Okay.
I mean, we had stoves. It depends on how much crack I had. Okay. But if I only had a hit, I'd still recook it.
What?
Like
That's crazy.
I carried a spoon with me everywhere.
You think it's that much of a difference? You think it's better?
Oh yeah, I wasn't taking no bullshit hits.
Wow, that's crazy.
Like I was a high class crackhead. So, I got my stuff from my neighbor, and it was a whole pill bottle full of recooked crack and a whole pill bottle full of blues. Not blues, greens. They were greens then. And I think I had some Xanaxes in there. And my mom was like, we have a flight. We have to leave. We have to go get on the flight. And I remember looking at my mom and saying, I'm not going anywhere until I use this shit. I'm not leaving my drugs. And my mom was like, you're going to kill yourself. And she's screaming and she's crying. And she's like, I just scraped you up off the road. And I didn't care. Like, I feel the only reason I got up out of that hospital bed was to get high. Because I didn't care if I lived or died. You know, I have been at this point shot and ran over and fuck it. I need to get high. You know, Mama had my drugs. You don't leave drugs, Mom. You know, and she didn't get it. And I drugged my mom through that shit. And I remember she drugged me through the airport in a wheelchair, you know, bitching the whole way. And they brought me down here, and thank God for Tri-County Human Services. I just have to say that. It's a nonprofit, you know, up in Central Florida. And I've probably been there 17 times. But they took me to my first detox at Tri-County. And I don't know if you've been to a nonprofit detox.
Yeah, of course.
So I go in and they're like giving me hell and I didn't want to be there and I'm hurting. And my grandmother, God bless her heart, she was like my biggest enabler. I call and I'm like, Mother, I'm tired and I'm hurting and I'm sore. And she'd be like, we're coming to see you today. Just smile real big. And she'd come and I'd smile and she'd throw like Percocet 10s in my mouth.
Oh, no.
While I'm in detox. So like I couldn't get any better. There was no chance of me like detoxing. And so, every time I went, I would leave. I was like the AMA queen.
Now, were meetings introduced yet?
There were meetings, but I don't think I was capable of hearing
You were
them.
just like
Yeah,
it
not
was
at
just
that
a
point.
group or something.
And remember, now I've been to 24 different detoxes treatment centers. This was the first one. So we're not quite even understanding the concept yet. And I remember getting out and needing to get high. And I could not get around in Florida the way I wanted to. So, I went back to West Virginia to Frank. And
did he apologize for running you over?
I don't remember. But probably.
That's crazy.
I'm sure he loved me and he didn't mean to, I'm not sure. But I know that when I got up there, it got really ugly really fast. And
you don't say.
I don't remember a whole lot. Like, I've got a lot of memory. Like, I did a lot of damage in active addiction. But I do remember fighting in his kitchen because his mom had stole some dope. And it was just a little bit. And it wasn't enough. Like, always needed more. And, like, I always thought, how fast I'm going to smoke that shit. And then what am I going to have left? And you want to stay here with this kid? And I can't even, what am I supposed to be doing? And so I would ask him for it. And I remember asking for it. And he had caught on to his mom was stealing his shit. Because digital scales were getting pretty popular then. And I remember we got in a fight and I remember him bashing my head into the kitchen cabinet. And I've still got like these lump scars all over my head today where like my head would just get bashed in, blood would be gushing. And then I had to start supporting my habit in other ways. So I remember like, I was just this thief. Like, I couldn't go anywhere around anybody. I'd go to, like, people's houses. And I remember stealing jewelry. I'd just steal everybody's jewelry. And I remember the police came, and they were like, we know you got the jewelry. And I gave them the jewelry back. And when I gave them the jewelry back, they arrested me. And I was like, you're not supposed to arrest me. You told me if I give it back, I wouldn't be in trouble. And they arrested me. And so, I ended up, my dad was the prosecuting attorney there. I told you I don't get in a whole lot of trouble there. So I went to jail. I got out. I had to do like therapy or counseling with him, like couples counseling or something. And when I finished that, I ended up coming back to Florida. And that was like it for him. And then he's been in and out of jail and he doesn't seem to be doing like, the best with his life. But I came back to Florida and I continued to try to control my using. And I couldn't. And I continued to steal. At this point, I'm stealing, I'm hustling. I think I'm a big drug dealer. Like I'm, like the white girl who will have all the drugs and nobody white that doesn't want to go to the hood doesn't have to, like they can cop from me. So I had this like little hole in the wall hotel room and now I'm with who will become my baby daddy. And that relationship was toxic too. And it got very, very bad, very quick. So, but he would continue to feed me dope and I would continue to hustle and the using just kept going and kept going. And my mom would try and intervene. And this is like 2000.
At this point, it's crack and oxys.
Crack and oxys. That's my drugs of choice. At this point, it's like my mom's like taking out charges on me. So I used my mom's debit card and I bought like $300 worth of shit that I could trade.
Yeah.
It wasn't like drugs with it, something I could trade for drugs. And she got me she went to the sheriff's office and they said, well, if you press charges, we can guarantee that she'll go to treatment and she'll be court ordered. So she'll have to stay. So my mom was like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. And they're like, and if she completes treatment, we will adjudicate charges and she won't have anything on her record. And that was a really good plan had I been willing. I just wasn't willing. And my mom followed the direction of the detectives and they arrested me for forgery, uttering a forged instrument, petty theft, and it was like 3 counts of each. And they took me to jail and I got out. Going to a treatment center, I absconded. So there goes the adjudication. I was at the Phoenix House in Ocala, Florida. I don't know if you ever heard of the Phoenix House, but it's like out in the middle of like some cow pastures and it's a DOC facility. So like I was the girl who had like 3 or 4 different boyfriends in treatment. And at the Phoenix House, you weren't allowed to talk. You had to like earn your mouth to talk, and you had to earn your feet to walk, and you had to earn this and earn that. And I was like, I'm not with this shit. So I took like 3 guys hostage with me out the cow field in the middle of the night. We're like AMAing in the cow pasture, and these assholes, like, all I remember is the shrooms growing on the cow shit, and they're stopping and picking the shrooms and eating them. And they're tripping, and we're trying to get through this cow pasture, and all I can think, like, the cops are going to be behind us with the flashlight.
And the dogs in the house.
Yeah. And so we finally make it across the field. They're high as shit. We go to the one guy's house, and after his money ran out, and the other guy's money ran out, and the other guy, he started tricking or something, and he went and did his thing. I called my mom to come and get me, and my mom made me turn myself in. And this is like a repeated cycle, on and on and on. And finally, they sent me to prison. They were like, she's not going to complete treatment. Let's send her to prison. And I went to prison, and I did treatment in prison, like a modality.
How old were you at this point?
This was 2002 to 2005. I was in prison.
Wow. What was prison like? Did you feel like changing at all?
No. I didn't want to change. I wasn't. I said I was going to change. I said, like, when I get out, I had like every intention. And I even got out and got my like first job at Taco Bell. And I wanted to be like the best employee. I remember this old lady comes through the drive-thru, and she hands me a 20 and lets go of it, and it goes blowing in the wind, and I jump through the drive-thru window. And I'm like running after her $20 bill, and I come back and I'm like, I've saved the day. And I got like employee of the month. And then they fired me for smoking weed by the dumpster. Like the only job I had. And I really was trying to like be a good employee. Yeah. And I was just smoking weed by the dumpster. It wasn't like stealing out of the register or anything. And I got a job at McDonald's, and they fired me for stealing out of the register, because every time someone would come through the drive-thru, it would be like $3.23, and I'd charge them $4.23. And credit cards weren't that big back then. So I would get the money and then give them back, and I would go home with like $100, depending on how many people went through the drive-thru, and I got $1 or $2 off of them. And so my drug addiction went back that way, and then I got fired. I couldn't maintain that image of I didn't have a problem. And with my baby daddy, he wasn't my baby daddy yet, but he was hustling and in and out of jail, and I'm in and out of jail. And it just got like to be so toxic, and all we were doing was using, and it just continued to like spiral out of control. Mm-hmm. Then, they placed me on, I got arrested for possession of cocaine again. Now, I want to tell you a little story. So my baby daddy knew that I had been ran over with a truck, and we were arguing one day, and I got out of his car, and he was only trying to scare me. He really didn't try and hit me, but he hit me with the rear view mirror of his car on my arm just to make me think he was going to run me over like my ex-boyfriend had. And he broke my arm in like 3 places. So that got me back onto the pain pills, because it would be like the pain pills were like kind of expensive. And when you're smoking crack, you really don't have a whole lot of money for that when you're not like hustling and don't have
And then if you're not like dependent on it, part of you is like, oh, well, I don't want to do that whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And when he broke my arm, I was reintroduced to the opiates.
So you had 2 boyfriends hit you with cars.
Yeah. How many girls can say that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, there you go.
So I had this like big pink cast on, mm-hmm. and it was so dirty. Like the padding was so dirty, but there was a place where I would keep my crack pipe in it, and then my pusher and my lighter, and like I would keep everything in my
cast.
And I remember one day they were coming through to do a reverse sting operation in Highlands County, and Officer Magnus, he just loved me. He was my arresting officer many times. And he came through, and I saw him, and I was like, hi. And I don't know, like how you got when you smoked crack. But for me, I got like extremely paranoid.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I could barely
I couldn't talk.
No, my tongue. Oh my God, I didn't have the ability to talk. Now I can't shut up. But I couldn't talk, and I couldn't think, and I couldn't I had no abstract reasoning. There was like nothing going on up there. It was just like blank, and I would just like do stupid shit. And I remember pulling the shit out in front of him and throwing it on the ground, and he was like, really? And I was like, it's not mine. He was like, did you see her throw it? And the other officer was like, yeah, I even got it on my body cam. And so they rearrested me for possession of cocaine. They took me to jail. And when they took me to jail, I got out on house arrest. And when I got out on house arrest, I was going to a doctor shopping, and I was getting 20s and 40s. And the doctor was giving me 20s, 40s, and Xanaxes. And when I was on house arrest, I had a legal prescription to do my opiates. I just didn't have a legal prescription to do cocaine. So then the opiates got big again. But there was something about that crack I couldn't stop smoking.
Tell me about it. It's so crazy.
There was something about it. Like whenever I did a blue, I had to smoke crack.
Yeah.
And I became like the urine queen.
Yeah, I was the urine king.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I had urine on me like it was my cell phone.
No, I bet I can beat you though.
So this is what I used to do. So I was an adolescent, so they wouldn't really watch me pee because I was like underage. But I used to get someone's pee. I would keep it in the freezer, and then I used to take a little bit out at a time when I used to, in the morning or whatever. I would keep it in a Visine bottle, right? Or like a nasal spray bottle or something like that. And then I would go to the Peter Glenn like ski shops that are here, and I would get the hand warmers, and then I'd put them around it, and then I used to put it on a string under my boxers. And then when I used to go and get drug tested, I would like open the hand warmers and make sure it's like warm. And that's what I used to carry pee on me every day like that.
Me too. But you put in a whole lot of
effort,
money and effort in those pee warmers. So here's how you should have done it.
Put it up my ass?
No, I bought a bidet bag.
A bidet bag?
Yeah. You ever like, like an IV bag?
Okay.
You ever seen like those bidets that you can take and you can like clean yourself?
No.
So it's like a plastic bag. Okay. And the top opens and you pour the urine down in it. Okay. And it's got this cord. The cord comes down out of the bag. It's a long cord, and it's got, you ever seen like an IV clip? You can close the line or open it. So I would take this bidet bag, and it's a portable bidet bag. You can buy them at CVS. And I would tape it to my back, and I would pour the pee in it, and I would close it, and I would tape it to my back. And the string I cut off, so it was about that long, and I would tape
Between
it
your legs?
Between my butt cheek and my lips, right? And I would tape it, and then I would always wear dresses, okay, because I was such a lady that when I had to take a urine test, I would hold up my dress, and while I'm holding my dress, I would open up the cord by moving the little valve, and the pee would come out in a stream, and I could close it and keep more pee on me in case they wanted to retest me. And like I always had pee.
It would be warm?
Because it's up against my back.
So it wouldn't, yeah.
It was on my back, so it was body temperature.
I guess that's crazy.
Yeah, and I always had pee. Like I would pay people.
For
their pee.
Too. I used to go to my neighbor and be like, dude, can I get pee? And he would be like, no, dude, da da da. And then you know what? Sometimes I would sell my pee because sometimes people needed pee for the doctor clinics with only opiates. So it was like a weird type of pee to find because a lot of people smoke weed and they do other drugs. There was I never smoked weed, so I didn't have any weed in my system. So people were like, oh, you have urine with just, pills? And I was like, yeah, because, at the pain clinic places, they would want nothing else, just.
Right. My grandmother was my biggest enabler. I'm telling you, she was my ride or die. She would give me the pee.
Wow.
And then what fucked me up was my grandma was prescribed Xanaxes.
Oh, no. And she never told you this? She just thought it was not a big deal.
She didn't realize that it was a drug.
I almost bought like animal pee because you could buy it for like hunting and stuff. So at one point I'm like, should I just buy animal pee? But I don't know if it would have worked.
So what happened was my grandmother gave me her pee like she always had, but now she's being prescribed Xanaxes. And I go in and the probation officer's like, it's positive for Xanaxes and cocaine. Like, there's no way it's positive for cocaine. There's no way. And he was like, how do you know? I was like, because I haven't smoked any. But I knew my grandma hadn't smoked crack, okay? And I knew she didn't have any cocaine in her system. And then he was like, well, we're going to have to send it off to the lab. So he let me go. Well, it came back negative for cocaine, but it came back positive for benzos.
Wow.
And I went to my grandma and I'm like, Mother, you gave me dirty pee? She was like, no. Well, they gave me some pills from the doctor.
Wow.
And so that violated my probation. So I knew, he called me and he was like, you're going to have to come back in because they had sent it to the lab, right? And he said, you're going to have to come back in. And I knew then that they were arresting me.
Yeah, they never do that. They never say, come back in to talk about your drug test.
Yeah. We're going to discuss this. So I had a pill bottle full of my 20s, my 40s, and my Xanaxes. I knew I couldn't smoke crack in the jail, but I could take my pills in. And I didn't want to be dope sick because when I came off the opiates.
They let you take opiates if you prescribe them in jail, right?
No, they won't.
Really?
No, they won't. So here's what happens when you take them, okay? If they find them, they put them in your property or destroy them because they're narcotic. So because I was such a frequent flyer at Highlands County Jail, and Officer Muse and Officer Soto was going to strip search me when I went in. They were going to make me bend and squat. Like I pride myself on my Kegels, all right? Like I put this pill bottle in me and I'm like squatting and I'm working on it and I'm making sure like it's there and they're not going to find it. And I got in the jail with the pill bottle full of 20s and 40s and Xanax. And then Sergeant Renfro had these big, sorry, Sarge, these big tattooed eyebrows on, and she comes at me and she's like, we're going to have to search you. We were given information. And I'm like, what do you mean? So I had been getting everybody in the cell high pretty much to keep them quiet. And they took me downstairs and they searched me. And I was like, they had a search warrant to go into me.
They could do that?
They had a search warrant for my body cavity.
What? I didn't even know that was a thing.
Because they knew I had narcotics in the jail.
So they're like, oh, we need it. And that's crazy. That's like an additional search warrant.
So they were going to take me, if I didn't produce them, they were going to take me to a gynecologist. Like they were going to do an exam. And I was like, fuck it. So because I had some in my bra, and I was like the type of person who would always like open up the seams of clothing and stuff.
And
like
my boxers.
Yeah.
Put pills
my
in there.
Panties, my bra, all that. And I had it in. They take the underwire out of your bra in jail. So I had this hole and I had the seam filled with pills, right? So I just popped it out and gave him the bottle of what I had left in the bottle.
You kept the bra ones.
But I kept the bra ones. And they put me in lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I did 9 months in the hole. And before I was sent to prison. But like a piece of a piece of a piece, just enough to not be sick. And I'm in a dungeon. When I tell you it was bad. It was bad. And
was there AC?
It was freezing.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God. It was like this metal cot. And I had like a green mattress, but there was no sheets or blankets. I had like the suicide thing on. Like it got bad. It got bad. Mm-hmm. And right before I was getting ready to go to prison, they let me have a visit. But I had got so dope sick in there. Like I didn't even care about visits. I was barely able to eat. I was in there for months and months before I was finally sentenced to prison. And they let me have a visit with my grandma and my mom. I got to see my grandma and my mom. And they sent me to prison. And I went to prison. And I was in the hole from like 9 months. I went to prison. And I went through R&O. And I go through R&O receiving an orientation. And then all of a sudden, like, they got me back in lock under investigation. And they're like switching me from like compound to compound. And I'm in lockdown the whole time. And finally, I go from like Broward CI because there used to be a prison in Broward. And they were like taking me to like Gadsden. And they stopped at Lowell. All right. I don't know if you've ever heard of these women's prisons. Okay. So I'm in lockdown in all these places. And they finally send me back to Broward under a drug investigation. And
now, is this on the bus?
Oh my God, I
heard the bus is like the worst thing ever.
It's like prison girls gone wild. It's like they're fucking. They're
the bus.
On the bus, it's crazy. And like I had never been exposed.
So I was told, because I know people that have been like interstate. I forget what it's called. Whatever, they've traveled from like state to state in the bus, and they've told me that it's like the worst thing ever, that it's so uncomfortable. You're like chained like this, you can't move.
Yeah, you are, and you can't go to the bathroom.
So how they have sex?
Peeing on themselves. Oh, a girl's dropping down,
really?
and like
doing stuff
right there on the bus. You're like, really, man? Like, I can't wait. Mm-hmm. It was horrible. Like we're talking 2 constant days of driving with a bus full of bitches, and like they're in the windows, like flashing people. It was like I could only imagine the people that saw this prison bus going by. God, the poor children we passed must be scarred. It was really wild. But they take me all the way back to Broward. They put me in lockdown, and I'm in lockdown again for like 9 months. And while I'm in there, my cousin Brianna was shot and killed in a bad drug deal. And I had like this mental break at that point to where I was just tired. I just was tired. And I finally got out of lock. And I remember like I'm walking down the compound, and there's like a line. Like you got to walk in a line, and then they come this way, they walk in another line. And this very day, my mother is going through a double mastectomy. She's got breast cancer, and they're cutting her breast off. And I just wanted to like call my mom that night. I wanted to let her know I was okay. I wanted to hear her. I wanted to know she was okay. And out of nowhere, this bitch comes up to me and starts beating my head in. And she's like, you know, you're walking next to my girlfriend. And I'm like oblivious to everything. And I was a fighter. Like, I was really like the type of person that would like fight anybody in any neighborhood at any hour over anything. And I carried a railroad spike on me. Like that was like my signature piece. Like I would hit bitches with railroad spikes and run. And like at this point, I'm down on the concrete, gripping the concrete, begging God, please don't let me fight back. Because I knew that they were going to throw my ass back in lock. And I just got out of lock, and I wanted to talk to my mom. And they came and they handcuffed me and the girl, and she's like spitting and acting crazy. And I'm like, who is this bitch? You know, and who is her damn girlfriend? You know, like what the hell? And they put me in lock, and the lieutenant comes, and the lieutenant's like, why'd you do it? And I'm like, what the hell did I do? Like I tried to grip the concrete so I didn't beat this bitch's ass. And her like steel toe work boots are like going upside my head. And all I'm doing is saying, God, please get me through this without allowing me to get in any more trouble. Like I'm so tired. And he was like, why did you do it? Why did you not fight back? So they knew, like there was a sergeant that saw it. Yeah. And I was like, my mom had breast cancer and she had a mastectomy. They cut her boobs off today, and I just wanted to talk to her. I remember they let me call my mom that night, and they gave me Notorious game time. So instead of going home in like September, I'm going home in June. And I got out with every intention at that point
to stay clean.
But I didn't know how. I didn't know how. I didn't know how to stay clean. And it was just like the insanity just kept going over and over. I didn't know there was a way out. You know, I didn't know that I could live without using. I didn't know that it was possible. I thought that I was going to be a drug addict forever. Like nobody, like when I was little, remember, nobody told me you're going to grow up and be a dope fiend. Yeah. And once I became a dope fiend, I didn't know how to like go back to that girl that I was supposed to be. And I remember like getting out and going through it all over again. And then finally I went back to prison. All right. The last time I was in prison, I went to the judge, and the judge said to me, and I had been in and out of treatment center, but nothing ever sunk in. And I said to the judge, let me go to treatment. And he said, no, you've already been to 20 treatment centers. We're not sending you back to treatment. I tell you what, if you want to go to treatment, you go do your prison bid. I'll give you 5 years probation on a suspended sentence, and we'll let you go to treatment when you get out of prison if you want to go to treatment. And I thought, all right, that sounds like a deal. Because I did. I wanted treatment. I just didn't know what treatment consisted of. So I went to prison for 18 months. I got out. And I went back to the nonprofit up in Central Florida. And at this point, I'm so institutionalized. Like I can do anything institutionalized. I don't care if it's a jail. I don't care if it's a prison. I don't care if it's a rehab. I don't care if it's a detox. I don't care if it's a hospital. Like I can thrive in institutions. I'm like that model inmate at this point. Like
and those 18 months, did you use in prison?
No.
Okay.
No, I was under investigation for marijuana. There was a lot of marijuana sales from a lot of the girls that were from the county that I was from, but I wasn't involved in it. I wasn't using. I could pass my drug test, and that also got me out. So I wasn't using in prison. So I had the whole 18 months without using. All right. That's probably the most time, because the first time I was in prison, I did use. Have you ever snorted powder in prison? It's the worst feeling ever. Oh my God. Not only are you like paranoid and looking around and like wanting more, and there's no way to get more.
Oh, I used to be smoking crack in class, and I would take a hit under the table, and then I'd have to like wait for like another hit, or I would like go to the bathroom and then come back and then have to wait until the bell rang for another hit.
But in prison, you don't.
It's a little worse.
Oh my God, it's the worst. But so the second time, no, I didn't get high. the paranoia is real, especially when you're in like an open bay. Oh, horrible. So I get out and remind you now I can go to treatment. So I do the 18 months and I get out and I go to treatment and I go back to the Razoo Center for Women. And I do well. And I do so well that after I finish the aftercare program, they allow me to come and work for them because you needed 2 years clean to work for them. Well, I got 18 months and then I did 6 months in aftercare and 3 months in inpatient or whatever. So I had the clean time requirement. And I worked for like 2 years as a BHT in treatment. And then they fired me and said I was like in relapse mode. And I'm like, I'm not relapsed. Like I'm not using.
You weren't going to meetings a lot?
No, I was. I had like, at this point now, I had like 5 years. Well, I celebrated 5 years, but I was going to AA. Okay. And I was going to the 12-step meetings. I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing, but there was like no God in it for me. It was all look at me, look at me, look at me. I have this like, it's like 2010 and I have like the 2011 Chevy Camaro, the bright green one. So I'm getting the toys, I'm getting the boys, I'm getting the money. And then I stopped going to meetings and they fired me from my job. And I remember going to a bar with no intention to drink. I was just like really cute and wanted to like dress up and like get some attention because, you know, I like attention, right? So I go into this bar and somebody hands me a drink. And I'm actually there with a guy who is there with another girl. So I went like, this girl and I went with the same guy. And he had like intentions on taking us like back to have sex together. And I had that one drink and all of a sudden they didn't seem appealing to me. As a matter of fact, neither did alcohol. And I remember like 10 minutes later, my phone was ringing and he was like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "Bitch, bye." And I'm on my way to the hood to cop. Like, and then that was like the beginning of my 7-year relapse.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like once I had done crack so early that as soon as I would do any other drug, I would just instantly want crack.
Yes.
Like there was times where I would try not to smoke crack and I would do like ecstasy. And as soon as it would hit me, I would be like, I need to do crack. Because it's like, I don't know, it's like once you have done that drug, it's like all these other drugs are just like getting the motor started to do what you really want to do. It's like, I don't know, crack is a very powerful substance. So then you use for another 7 years. What were the 7 years like?
That 7 years was like.
Is that like those like the end of those
pictures? Yeah, that's where the pictures come in. Like that's who I became. The isolation became like paramount in my life. Like the fact I had my own place. All right. I had a house and I would like throw sheets over the mirrors in the bathroom. Like I couldn't look at myself. And the only time the sheets would move is if I would have picking parties in the mirror. Like I would sit in the mirror for hours with like tweezers and needles and pick my face. And I had like open sores all over my face. And to the point I remember like putting peroxide on my face and like my face would be covered with Neosporin. And then I'd be like, I've got to stop this. And I put the sheet back over it. And it just got so bad because it was like, now it's blues because, you know, the oxys started becoming where you couldn't crush them up and snort them and stuff. So I started getting on the blues and then the doctor was giving me 15s and 30s. So I'm going to the doctor where I had been ran over. I'm crying pain and I'm still doctor shopping at this point and I'm getting the 15s and the 30s and I'm smoking crack. And like it got so bad. I remember like doing all my pills and then throwing a cinder block through my living room window and calling the police and telling them that somebody broke in and stole my prescription. And I did a police report letting them know that like someone had robbed me so that I could get another prescription from my doctor because
Oh, you could do that?
With a police report.
Wow.
Yeah. And so now I have the prescription, which he only gave me enough till the end of the month. So I should have probably done it at the beginning of the month, but I didn't know. So if you ever do that.
Yeah, because you know what? You know, rest in peace to my cat Mew. But my cat had like this liquid stuff I had to put in his what's it called? His food. And this one day I was like opening the bottle and I was like, you have to use like a little syringe. And I was putting it in his food and like I left it on the table and he knocked it over and it spilled all over the ground. And I remember thinking I don't know if it was, maybe it was a narcotic. I don't know what it was, but I remember they would be weird whenever I would try to fill it too early or something. I'm like,
They give animals Xanax a lot. Valium.
it was something like that. So I remember being like, they're not gonna believe me,
Like you were in there doing it.
Well, I was just like, what if you really are, you need OxyContin because you're really in pain and you lose them in a drain somewhere or something. It's like, what do? They're not gonna believe you.
So I had heard, and I tried it out, and it was true. But you don't if you get your pills on the 1st, and you throw the cinder block through your living room window on the 23rd, you only get 7 more days of pills. So if you're gonna do it, you should always do it on the first couple days. But then your doctor becomes skeptical.
Yeah, and then they're
how many people have been breaking in your house lately?
Yeah.
How often does this happen? And you're like, oh, they know I'm on pills, and the people next to me. But I did live next to methfield. There was this little town in the yard next door where there were these little RV campers all over the backyard, and everybody out there did meth. And they knew I was on pills, and I knew they were on meth, but they didn't come into my yard, and I didn't go into theirs. It was you just mind your business and I'll mind mine. But it got really bad because now I get pregnant. And I was the girl who said, if I ever get pregnant, I would never get high. I would never get high if I got pregnant. And I could not stop. I could not stop using. And I did try to cut back. It wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it definitely wasn't manageable. It definitely wasn't a functioning addict, or, like some people say. I definitely wasn't functioning. And it was a toxic relationship with my baby's father. And I remember he threw me down. Now he'd already hit me with the car, and broke my arm years ago. So, we had an abusive past, and I was just as abusive. I was an initiator a lot of the times. I'd go upside his head or hit him with something and initiate the fights because I wanted, I was also maybe addicted to the adrenaline and the drama and the chaos. And I could thrive in chaos, but I felt like if I created enough chaos, I might catch him slipping, And I remember he would bury his dope in the yard while he went to work because he didn't take his dope with him. And I'd go dig up the whole yard looking for his dope, where he would put it. And I would memorize how the yard looked so I could see if something had been messed with. It got crazy. And one day I found his dope, and he came home, and I had smoked it all. And it wasn't that much, but when you don't have that much, and that's kind of what you're counting on. And he would give me what he had. But I remember initiating a fight, and he ended up throwing me down and breaking my back while I was pregnant.
Broke your back?
So
what did he do? Suplex you?
He slam me.
What?
And I carried my baby with a broken back, and they wouldn't give me pain pills because I was pregnant. And I was still getting them off the streets and hustling, and my family wanted to help. So my grandmother and my mom were going to West Virginia on a trip, and my cousin had me come up there and stay with her, and I did really well for a couple weeks. But then my grandmother came back to Florida, and she got sick. And she was a breast cancer survivor as well, along with my mother. And when she came back to Florida, the breast cancer had came back in her spine. And so they couldn't remove it. So at this point, she's deteriorating fast. And I got on a plane, I came back to Florida, and they put her in hospice. And I remember going to hospice and seeing her, and she ended up passing. And that took me to a whole new bottom. Because remember, my grandmother adopted me when I was 7. I had been my whole life with her. I was her baby. And she was my greatest enabler. It didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter how long I had been out. It didn't matter how dirty I was. It didn't matter, what I needed. She would give me her Social Security check every month. Every month on the 1st, she would give me her check. And I would come in after being out for weeks, and she would just put me in the shower and cook me something to eat and wash my clothes, and I would go to sleep, and I'd wake up ready to run again. And she would do whatever she could. She'd get pain pills from the doctor, and she'd give me some because she knew I was sick. She'd give me her Xanaxes just so I could sleep. And I drugged people in her house. I lied to her. I stole from her. Like her and my grandfather were going to church. And I remember like my grandfather was in early onset dementia, and he had like the tithes for church laying on the bed in like the envelope. And I took the whole damn envelope and ran, like just
Stuff like that.
yeah, just like real dope fiend type shit. And then my grandmother died while I was pregnant, and it was just bad. Like I remember like when I was in prison and my cousin had got killed in the drug deal, that feeling I had in that lockdown cell was like the same feeling when my grandmother died. It's like a powerlessness, it's like a hopelessness, it's like guilt, regret, remorse, and no coping skills. And I knew like I wanted to get clean. I wanted to be clean when I had the baby. I didn't want him to take my baby. But I always heard like they can take the baby's stool and they can find out if you've used during pregnancy and stuff like that. But then, throughout the pregnancy, I continued to use. And then all of a sudden I was in like really bad pain. And I woke him up and I said, I have to go to the hospital. And he said, you're high. And I was high. But he said, you can't go to the hospital. And then I started bleeding. And I said, I have to go to the hospital now. And I went to the hospital and I was in labor. And she was 3 weeks early. And she was 5 pounds, 11 ounces. And she was positive. And when I had her, DCF came and they were ready to take her. And I said, please don't take my baby. Like, I'll die if you take my baby. And I'll do whatever it takes to keep my baby. So she was withdrawing so bad, they allowed me to breastfeed her so that she could like withdraw through my breast milk. And I continued to...
They didn't take the baby?
They didn't take her.
Oh my God.
They didn't take her, but they did put me on a program called Fit Parent. And for 9 months, I had like 2 or 3 people coming to the house a week. I was doing random drug screens. I had to do all these classes, and I completed 9 months successfully. But back up just a little bit. So I'm on Fit Parent, and
is this what your baby dad using the whole time and everything?
So he doesn't like use crack. He was a Rasta. He's a dread. So he smokes weed, but he sold crack. And
so that's what you mean when you say like you stole his dope or whatever.
Yeah, stole his dope. It wasn't like he wasn't smoking or nothing, but he was sell. So I would send him to work with lunch, and then he would like come home in the evening. So on Friday, one day, I sent him to work with lunch, and I was waiting for him to come back with payday, and he never came back. Like, he never came back. So I got my baby and I got in my car and I'm riding around like all weekend long looking for him, and I can't find him anywhere. And my mom had just helped him buy this truck, and I found the truck outside this trailer. And so I get out of the car and I get my baby, and we walk up to the door, and I'm knocking on the door, and he answers the door in like some pajama pants. I'm like, whose house is this? And he's like, mine. I'm like, yours? What about my bills? What about like what we got? Like, what do you mean yours? He was like, I left. You left us? Like, I have no diapers. I have no money. I have no food. And you just like up and leave without even saying shit? Like, if you want to go, go. But at least be like, bitch, I ain't coming back. Like, I'm sitting here thinking you finna bring like some shit home. And more importantly, like some drugs. You supposed to re-up today. And where are you? And so when I found him, I was like devastated. So I take my baby back, and the using gets really bad. And so bad, my mom steps in and takes my baby. And she was like, you need to get some help. And I couldn't stop. So I'm at my house. My mom has my baby. She's at my grandmother's house. My grandmother had passed. All right. So my mom's living at my grandma's house. I'm living at my house, and he's moved out. And after like 9 months, they took me off the Fit Parent. I had completed Fit Parent, right? The day I came off of Fit Parent, my baby came off the breast and went onto a sippy cup, and I relapsed. And my mom took the baby. So when she takes the baby, at that point, I'm like nothing to live for. And I'm just constantly using. I'm tricking. I'm selling my body. I remember like, anything that I could do. If I would walk in Walmart with a buggy and walk out with like flat screen TVs, like coolers, like anything you could think of. I would like to the point, like every time I walked in Walmart, police were walking behind me. So my mom took my baby, and like the paranoia was so bad. Like I had like aluminum foil all over my windows. There was like a psychotic break that had happened. Like I can remember like breaking all my dishes. There was glass everywhere. There was like, I was like using little tiny crack pipes everywhere. People would come over and trick. There were dirty rubbers everywhere. I mean, my fingernails like were so dirty that there were like little cuts with like black lines all over them. There were calluses all over them. There were burn marks all over them. And I still am recooking all my crack. So, you know, the black soot on the bottom of a spoon, like it's everywhere. I've got black soot. I look like I've been working in the chimneys. I mean, it's like horrible. It's like so sad. And my mom, you know, she's like, you're going to have to get some help. You know, she wouldn't let me see my daughter. I would go and I would knock on the door and I'm like, I'm hungry. And I remember she like put a bowl outside. And she like told me I couldn't have a spoon because she didn't want me to cook drugs in it. And I was eating out of my dirty hands with like the food that she had given me with like my hand. Like, and I felt like so animalistic at this point. And I had no running water at my house. I had no electricity at my house. And I had like turned on the meter and the power company came and put the locks on it. So I couldn't even steal it. I had a well. So I had no electricity and I couldn't run water. And I like taking showers in water hoses, and like there was a furniture store. I'd go over there and like take a shower in their water hose at the furniture store. And just like I'm in dumpsters behind stores. I'm not only like looking for food, but like the broken merchandise they throw away. I'm like trying to find stuff I can super glue and salvage to sell. And it just got so bad that I'm like tricking with these old men. And one day, like I had my daughter, and I remember, you know, it is what it is. I had my daughter and I needed a break, and I told her dad to come and get her. I was like, I need a break. You need to help me with her. And she came home after being with him, and I put her in the shower and she started screaming. And she said, Daddy hurt me. And I said, what do you mean Daddy hurt you? And she said, Daddy put his finger into my pee-pee up to here and pointed to her belly button. And I called my mom. My mom's a nurse. And I called my mom and I told her what she said. And I called DCF and I opened up a child abuse case. And if you ever call DCF about your own child, then you go under scrutiny as well. And I knew then, like, I had to make a choice. I either have to, like, do it for my daughter and do it and really do it, or like allow this to have happened. And my mom and I opened the DCF case, and they came, and you know, of course I'm dirty, and my mom at this point gets custody, like temporary custody and guardianship, while I'm like all screwed up. And they found him not guilty, but the doctor said her hymen was broken.
How's that possible? That's crazy.
It was like hearsay, her word against his, and there was no proof because he passed the lie detector test that he did it, even though she demonstrated through child therapy and talked about it.
I thought they don't do lie detector tests in court. They do lie detector tests?
It wasn't submissible in court, but the fact that he didn't fail made them not want to pursue charges.
Also, like, you're on drugs, so he's probably saying you're crazy. And
Yeah. So, I knew I needed to get help, but I did not want to leave my baby. And so I asked my mom. I had heard about, it used to be a treatment center here. It was a Mommy and Me program. They changed the name of it, but back then it was like the Susan B. Anthony Center or something. I asked my mom, I was like, if I go to this treatment center, will you bring her to me once I get stable? And she was like, if you go to treatment and you can be there for a while and you've got therapy and you're doing the right thing, you're passing your drug test, we'll work on reunification. And that was like my only hope. And I came to Broward County for the first time. And I went to this Mommy and Me program. And ended up getting my daughter. The whole way down here, I'm like smoking crack in the car with my mom, pulling over to every McDonald's. Like I still couldn't stop. Even though I had the desire and the want to, like I was so attached to my drug, I was almost like mourning the fact that I wasn't going to be able to get high anymore. And that was the only way I knew how to cope. And now I'm at this treatment center for women and children. My baby's not there yet, and I'm not high anymore. And it was almost like what has happened to my life? What have I done? And I do really well, and I'm supposed to. My mom brings her, and I get a job, and I'm there like through the winter months into the new year. And anybody who's got kids knows you get an income tax credit when you get kids, on your income tax return. So I'm working and I'm saving money. They got this little way you can save money, and I get my income tax return. I put it up, and I'm supposed to get out May 1st, and they let me go March 15th. You're doing so well. Remember, I'm institutionalized. I'm like the poster child for a rehab center. And this was my 24th attempt at treatment. And they said, you're doing really well. We're going to let you go home. You've got your money. You've got a place to go live, everything. So I went back to Highlands County to my mom's. Now, my mom had just had implants put in from her breast surgery. So she's having like her artificial implants put in, and she's laying in the chair, and she's got tubes coming out, and she's got pain pills. And I come home to try and help take care of my mom. I've got my baby back. We're at my mom's house. I've gained weight. I've got a pocket full of money. I'm looking good. Things are going well. My mom, needs me to help her. I'm giving her pain pills as she needs them. And things are going good. And I'm just taking one pain pill at a time and putting it in my pocket to see if she'll notice. And she doesn't notice. But how's she going to notice? The pills are in the kitchen, and I'm bringing them to her. Like, I'm the one delivering her medication. And I'm fooling myself thinking nobody's going to know. And I keep taking a pill. Well, they're like Percocet 5. Okay. Like, I need like 12 of them. Okay. Just to like feel it. And like when I get like 8 in my pocket, she needs a pill, and she's out of pills. And she's like, I should have more. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think I gave them all to you, Mom. You only had 2 last night, remember? Because I would tell her how many she had left, and like trying to manipulate the situation. And it was like 3 weeks for me being home. And I remember going and buying like 10 blues and like an 8-ball of cocaine. And I cooked it up, and I got the blues. And at this point, I'm snorting blues. I'm smoking blues. I never was an IV user, and that's only because of my best friend. And I got high for so long, and she was an IV user, and she would never let me shoot up. She was like a little guard dog. Like, anybody came around me with a needle, she's like, no, you're not allowed to do it. She's not going to do it. Then she'd give me a pill, and then she'd give me money to go buy crack, but she would never let me use a needle. And, thank God for her, not let me use a needle, because I may have died. But I got out, and within 3 weeks I had relapsed. And then my brother died of a heroin overdose. And my mom, she calls, and she was like, Alex is gone. And I came to the house, and the police were there, and I start screaming, and they're like, we're sorry. And I went through all that. And I can tell you that, it got to the point where I was just I was like numbing over the pain. Like, with my brother dying, it was like I had no reason to live. My grandma's gone. My brother's gone. I'm using my mom's miserable. She's just lost her son. Like, this cries from a mother losing their child to active addiction is so heartbreaking. It's like, all day and all night, and I couldn't listen to it anymore. Like, I was just using, and I had a dream, and my brother came to me in my dream, and he said, Sissy, you can't say you're getting high over me. You've been getting high for years. And I woke up the next day, and I could not get high. I could not bring myself to get high. And I knew from being in Broward County, I had a guy who had like 20 some years clean. So I put it all out there. I might as well put it all out there. So he's going to the rooms, he's going to meetings, he's got 20 some years clean, and he comes up and gets me from Highlands County, and he brings me back to Broward County. And I'm with him, and he's going to meetings every day, and I'm sitting in his car smoking crack in the parking lot of the 12-step meeting. And he's keeping me high. He's keeping me on blues, and he's keeping me on crack. And I'm going home, and he's a little older, and he has erectile dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am supposed to be in a relationship with him, and he's telling me his dick won't get hard because I'm not doing my job. And I'm like, I might as well be tricking and getting some real dope, because this little petty shit, your dick is never going to get hard. You've got a medical dysfunction. Like, there's something fucking wrong with you, dude. Like, I have sucked your dick for fucking ever.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I started building a resentment towards him. Like, you think you're all fucking high and mighty because you're going to the rooms and you're fucking professing how you're spiritually fit, and then you're coming home and tricking with my ass.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, fuck you, I'll get clean. And like, I'm not getting high anymore anyway. Remember, like, I can't use my brother as an excuse. My mom's got my baby again. I'm in this like horrible like cycle. And I walked into Memorial West Hospital, and I said, I'm about to be real sick real fast, and I don't want to get high, and I can't keep using, and I can't stop. And they put me on a gurney, and my mom had my daughter, and she said, do whatever you have to do. And he was there with me, but I just didn't want to get high anymore. I was just tired. You know, I'm like 98 pounds. I'm like a burnt chicken. You know, I had the blonde mohawk,
Okay.
like shaved head going on. I've got like craters all over my face. And I was just like so dead that spiritually, emotionally, you know, the only thing that was still like alive was my physical body. And like, there was no emotion. There was no like anything, no spiritual connection. There was nothing. And I checked into the hospital, and 3 days later, they put me on a 3-day taper plan. And this is when subs were starting to come out. And they're like, we're going to put you on subs. And I looked at that doctor and I said, I'm not walking out of here on subs. I said, so I don't know how long you can keep me, but when I walk out of here, I'm walking out of here with nothing. And so he put me on 8 milligrams the first day, 4 milligrams the second day, and 2 milligrams the third day. And when I walked out the last day, that's when it fucking hit you, though. Like, when you actually come off of them, when you like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
So they discharged me, and I walked into a 12-step meeting, and I walked into a noon meeting, and I'm sitting there, and I'm shaking, and I'm sweating, and I'm crying, and my teeth are chattering, and I look like death. I'm pale, I'm pasty, I'm gray, and I walked up and got a white key tag, and I really, really meant it.
Did you believe the program worked?
I didn't know if it worked or not, but I knew what I had been doing hadn't worked, and I was willing to give anything a chance, anything. And they said to me, if you put as much into your recovery as you did, matter of fact, you just put half into your recovery as you did into getting high, you'll make it. And I thought, all right, we'll see. And I went to a 6 p.m. meeting that night. And then I went to the 10 p.m. meeting that night. And I did that for about 4 months. And all I did for 4 months, was go to a noon meeting, a 6 or 7 p.m. meeting, and a 10 p.m. meeting. And then sometimes they even at Sunshine Cathedral had a midnight meeting, So I was hitting like 4 meetings a day. And, even though I talked shit about him being in the program with these decades clean and all this shit, I think he played a vital part in my recovery, because he was taking me around to all these meetings, and he was keeping me with him, and he was feeding me, and he was making sure that I was okay. He was making sure I was okay. And there was a price to pay, though. There was still a price to pay.
Yeah, he's still taking advantage of a sick, suffering person at their lowest point.
Yeah, but even when I got clean, there was still a price to pay. All right? And then my clean date is 11/11/2019. And they told me there was something powerful about the number 1111. And I looked it up, and it says you're like embarking on your spiritual journey. You're going to come aligned with your higher self. And I'm going to like all these meetings. And then December 1st, 2019, I walked into a meeting, and I heard somebody up here like, I've got 5 years clean, and my circle's small, and I don't let people in, and wah, 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 wah. And I'm thinking, fuck you. Nobody wants to be in your little fucking circle. Like, who the fuck are you anyway? And it's, this fucking asshole. And all of a sudden this lady was like, my circle's as big as everybody in this room. Every addict that's in this room can circle up, and that's how big my circle is. And every room I go in, my circle's as big as every person in the room. I don't exclude nobody. And the 12-step fellowship doesn't exclude anybody. And I want y'all here, and y'all can be in my circle. And that's just not what we do here. And I'm like,
that's cool.
I like her.
Mm-hmm.
I like her a lot. I like her sass, I like the way she just stood up for what she felt like she needed to say. And I went up to her after the meeting and asked her for her phone number. And I called her for a couple days, and December 1st, she became my sponsor. And she's been my sponsor ever since. She's walked me through the steps. And after I got about a year clean, I realized and started working steps. I realized I was the same girl in recovery that I was in active addiction, but now I'm not getting high and I can't blame it on the drugs. I'm still tricking with this motherfucker. I'm still walking in Walmart stealing. I'm still lying. I'm still manipulating. I'm still looking for hostages anyway. Like, I think I'm cute and I'm walking in, and even though I'm with him, I'm like eyeballing this guy across the room ready to take him out, and I just didn't want to be that girl anymore. And I told my sponsor, like I've got to let him go, because I can't trick with him anymore for a place to live. I can't trick with him for, anything. And his dick is never going to get hard. Like, it's just fucking not working. And so, she walked me through that. She walked me through that process of how to, like, stop using people. And when I was working as a BHT at a treatment center, and I'm going to school. I go back to school, and I'm getting good grades, and I realized, like, I'm actually capable of creating a good life for myself. And I go back to school, and I start studying human services, specializing in drug addiction treatment. And I'm working nights, and I'm going to school all day, and then, like, COVID hits. And I get clean November 2019. So COVID hits like February, March that next year. So I've got like 4 or 5 months clean. Remember, I had been going up to meetings every day until this point. Then all of a sudden, meetings shut down. And I'm getting ready to go back to school. And all of a sudden, all classes are like on Zoom only. Like, you can't go to the college and take a class. And they said to me, if you put as much into your recovery, or at least half of that, as you did into getting high, you'll be successful. So as I started working steps, I started learning spiritual principles. And I go back to school, and if I needed help, I started practicing honesty and saying, hey, I need some help. And then I started having hope that I could actually pass the class. And I started having some faith in myself. And the higher power of the classroom was the teacher, and the courage and the integrity. And I went back to school, and I ended up graduating valedictorian.
That's crazy.
Right?
What did it feel like going back to school?
I was full of fear. So I got clean at 42, and I went back to school. My birthday's in January. I'm getting ready to celebrate my 46th birthday in 2 weeks. So I went back to school at 43, and I'm thinking, like, I'm going back to school with these kids that are dually enrolled. The only thing I ever knew was dually diagnosed, like, I didn't know, like, dually enrolled. They're like going to high school and college. They're like super smart kids,
like
and they're like 15, like mom's dropping them off and shit. And I'm like, oh my God, like, they're going to like outdo me. And I go back to school, and I become like the mother hen of the classroom.
Were you good at school in high school?
No, my mom had to write research papers for me. Remember? Like, I barely graduated. I had to go to summer school because I was kicked out and suspended so much. But then when I went back to college, I applied myself, and I wrote my research papers. I gave like presentations on, there's a nonprofit here, and they were like taking back the streets where they're passing out Narcan and stuff. And I like do a presentation on that for Broward College, and they like make it like the whole college's presentation. It was really wild. And I made straight A's, and I ended up graduating my program in a year, valedictorian. And then I also became the National Phi Theta Kappa member of the year.
That's cool.
And on a national level, I was recognized. And Then I went on to get my CAC, and I went and I'm a certified addiction counselor. So I sat for my state board last year and became certified in June.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm a therapist now.
What does your mom think of all this?
My mom is over the moon. She's so happy. And to be able to make living amends to her, to be able to be a part of her life and for her to be a part of my life, for her to be able to see me doing a good job with her only grandchild, to be able to be present. I'm a member of the PTA.
Wow, you're a PTA mom?
I'm a PTA mom. Yeah.
That's cool.
My daughter is on the debate team.
How old's your daughter?
She's 10.
Wow.
And she doesn't remember. She remembers my active addiction, but she doesn't remember what she accused her dad of. And I won't remind her. And, if there's ever something like this that's airing, because I've shared my stories on several platforms several times, and I don't let her hear that, because all I do is remind her of how loved she is. And, they said he wasn't guilty. She said he was. I'm going to be the mom that supports my daughter 100%. I will never look at her and say that never happened, but I will not remind her of that either. And, what recovery has done for me is made me a present parent. It's made me someone who makes sure, like, who I am today is someone my daughter is going to be proud of. And I teach her what I was not taught. I was not taught that I could ruin my life to drugs. I was not taught that if I made poor choices, I was going to suffer poor consequences. My ego was stroked. And when they stopped stroking my ego, I couldn't handle it. I could not handle when they were good girl, atta girl, good job. You did it. You can do it. And then when I messed up and they told me you're not supposed to do that. That was out of this world. I couldn't handle that. You talk to me like that, and that entitlement grew in me, and that grandiose personality, how dare you? You couldn't tell me anything. And the rebellion started. And I tell my daughter, you don't do your homework, you made bad grades, you're going to be held back. You don't clean up your room, you don't take care of your stuff, it's going to break and you're not going to have anything nice. You have to take responsibility for your actions, the way you treat people and the way you make them feel, and who do you want to be? Who do you want people to see you as? Do you want to be loving and caring, or do you want to be that little shit kid that nobody likes, And my daughter is pure love and pure joy. And she, I still act out in character defect, and I still want to be mad at people, and I still want to hold resentments. And my daughter will look at me and say, Mommy, love always wins. Two wrongs don't make it right. And she reminds me of what I'm instilling in her. And, again, I don't remind her of all that. And I work the steps, and I want to share that when I work the steps, I had to make a list of people I would forgive now, people I might forgive, and people I would never forgive. And he was on that never list. I was never going to forgive him. That son of a bitch. I hated him. And my sponsor said, pray for the willingness that when the opportunity presents, you will forgive him. And I thought, that's not possible. And she said, will you pray for the willingness that if the opportunity presents, that you will forgive him? And I said, I'll pray, but I'm not going to mean it. She said, I don't care. Just pray. And so I started praying, and I started puking. I would pray and I would literally physically puke.
Wow,
my
sick.
Body. Oh my God. I would gag. I would spit up. I would cry. I would say, God, I don't mean it. This is not what I feel. This is not my heart. I'm sorry. I'm lying to you. But she told me to pray for him and everything I want for myself for him to receive. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm just following suggestions. God, forgive me for lying. I don't mean it. And I continue to pray and I continue to pray. And after time, the prayer started to change. And I started to pray that if there was something broken in him, that he would heal. And that any pain that he had caused or inflicted on me and my daughter, that he would never inflict that pain on anyone else. And that, he may be forgiven not only from my daughter and me, but also himself. And that we would just all continue to heal and grow in love and light of the Spirit. And I got a paper in the mail that said I need to report to child support court. I never got child support. He owed me over $10,000, and she was at the time 8. So we got 10 more years of child support coming in. And I thought, well, this is it. This is how I'm going to make an amends. He needed a ride to court. And I was working over off Pine Island Road, and I took off work and I drove all the way up to Highlands County, picked him up, and court was in Polk County. So I'm picking him up in Highlands County. I'm taking him to Polk County. That's going to be my amends. Look at me, God. I'm doing good. And I get to the courthouse, and I'm with him in front of the judge, and the judge looks at me and says, what would you like to do? And I said, all I want to do, Your Honor, is forgive him.
Wow.
And he said, what do you mean you want to forgive him? I said, I prayed that when the opportunity presented, that I would have the willingness to forgive him. And I'm just here to exercise that forgiveness. And he said, what do you want to do? I said, I don't want anything from him. I don't want anything else. I want to be done with this all. I don't even want the child support. And it was happening so fast, and it was coming out of me so fast. He said, what do you mean you don't want the child support? I said, it's not that I don't need it, but I'm tired of needing it and never getting it. I'm tired of expecting something and it not coming. And I don't want to ever have to come back to this courtroom and do him a favor or be here and take time off of my job where I am making money to support my daughter to have to come back to this facade again. I want to forgive him, and I want to be done with child support. And through my process of recovery, my amends process, I also had to make amends to society. And then going back to school, like, I was arrested 28 times. Like, I'm a 12-time convicted felon. And you can't just work in this field, like, without background checks. So I worked really hard to get a level 2 background exemption through the Department of Children and Families and through AHCA, which is the Agency for Healthcare Administration. And in these processes of a level 2 background exemption, I found out that when you violate probation, okay, this is for everybody. When you violate probation and say, I'll take the jail time or the prison time, the fines don't go away. They have like this record of everything you were supposed to pay, like restitution and probation and supervision fees and then court fees and fines and all this shit. And so I ended up owing like $8,000. So when I'm going through this level 2 background exemption, they won't even see it until I pay all my fines and stuff.
Damn.
But through the process, there were like these stimulus checks coming out. Like, God just made a way for money to appear. And I started getting like my stimulus check, my baby daddy stimulus check, my daughter's stimulus check. And we're okay because I'm working all through the pandemic. So I paid off my fines. Actually, my mom took a little loan out for me. That's how much she believes in me now, since you asked about my mom. And I ended up paying her back with the stimulus checks. And I'm in the courtroom, and I want to do away with child support. And he was like, well, it doesn't work like that. You can't just like do away with child support. And this lady stood up from the Department of Revenue, and she was like, actually, Your Honor, she can. Last year, she paid everything off in full that she owed the state. She doesn't owe the state anything, and everything coming through child support would actually be hers. And they dismissed all back pay, $10,000 some dollars, and all future payments. So what are we looking at? $25,000, $30,000, whatever. And he was really happy, and I was like, I didn't do it for you. I did it for me. I did it to be free from the resentment. I did it to be free from the bondage of expecting it and never getting it. And I don't, like I said, I don't remind her of what happened. And when he calls and wants to talk to her, I let him talk to her. And just last weekend, I let him take us out to dinner. He will never take her alone, and he will never remind her or throw something up in her face. And it is my job to protect her. But I don't want her growing up thinking I kept her from her daddy. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to ever put her in a position where she could be harmed. Mm-hmm. So I will let him see her if I'm there. And if I'm not, then we'll just have to do it another time. Sorry for the inconvenience, you know. I went back to work. And at the time I was working VOB. And the company I was working for gave me a $5,000 raise. And I was getting ready to go to another company, and they offered me $10,000 more dollars. So my salary went up like $15,000. And then I went to work for another company, and I was given $10,000 more dollars on top of that annually. Mm-hmm. And then I took a different position and was given another $5,000 on top of that raise. So annually, I'm already making like $30,000 more a year than I was at the time that I let that money go. And then someone came up to me and said, I believe in you. I believe in your recovery. I see what you're doing as a single mom. And and I want to help you. And they handed me a check for $25,000.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so I told you I own property in Central Florida. So the property next door is just blank land. It's like 3.5 acres. And I called the guy who owned it, and I was like, "Do you want to sell?" And he was like, "What will you offer me?" I was like, "I'll give you $25,000." And he was like, "Well, send me a check, and I'll send you a bill of sale." I was like, "No. We're gonna go through the lawyer and get me a title and a deed and all that." And they sold it to me, and so I feel like if something happens to me, like that'll go to my daughter. She'll have something to stand on, and I'm starting to like try to create wealth and generate something for her to have if something happens to me, because I didn't think about those things my whole life. Like I didn't work. I got fired from Taco Bell, you know? And so now I'm working, and I'm doing good, and I meet a guy, and for a long time I resisted it, because when I got out of that toxic relationship in early recovery, my sponsor put me on a man ban. And she said, "Don't date anybody." And so I'm just like building myself up, becoming a PTA mom, you know, and I'm doing everything I need to do. And then the suggestion changed, and she said, "Now I want you to date everybody." And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Date everybody." She's like, "Drive your own car, pay your own way, go to the restaurants or the date places by yourself, leave by yourself. Don't fuck them. Whatever you do, don't fuck them. See if you can have a conversation with them." And that was like foreign to me. I'm like going out with people, and I'm like, hey, you know, what do you like to do? You know, how long you been clean? 4 months. Let's go. You know, like, and I took a couple guys hostage again, and I saw the pain like in their face when I used them, and I felt like I was reversing things. Like I was becoming the people that had used me for so long, and I was becoming like the person that I didn't want to be in recovery. And I told my sponsor, I said, I relapsed on that suggestion. And she was like, "Well, start over." She was like, "I want you to identify 10 things you want out of a relationship." And I wrote down a list of 10 things I wanted out of a relationship. And she said, "Now, one by one, start giving them to yourself. You want somebody to show you off? Well, then get dressed up and take yourself out and show yourself off. You want financial security? You want somebody who's going to help you pay the bills? Then get you a job where you're going to be able to pay the bills and start making money and saving." She said, "If you want, you know, whatever you want." I wrote it down, and all these things that I wanted out of a relationship, even sex, I was able to give to myself. Everything I wanted, I was able to give to myself that was on that list. And then my list changed. I wanted somebody who believed in a higher power the way I did. I wanted somebody, second, that I could trust around my daughter. That was like very important to me. And then I also wanted somebody who wanted the same things out of life that I did. Same goals and aspirations, like wanted to grow and become somebody who saw life the way I saw life and just had the same values. And then I realized like my truth may not be your truth. You know, like there's only one truth, but at the same time, like you might say lima beans are good and I might hate lima beans. So that might be a true statement for you, but it might not be true for me. So I had to learn to own my truth, and I had to learn who I was. And the process of recovery has taught me that. And once I was able to identify like my core values and my core beliefs, I was able to align my actions with that. And that's how I was able to build integrity. And when I became a woman of integrity, I started covering myself up. I didn't have to wear the belly shirts. I didn't have to use my body for attention anymore. I didn't have to use sex as a way to get attention. And like I dated someone and he was too nice. You know, he was like a good guy, like a really good guy. And I tried to sabotage the relationship. And I even went out with someone else, and I went out with someone else and it didn't feel right. Like my spirit was not okay. And I called him and I told him, and he was like, "Come to me." And I went to him and I told him like what had happened. I went to this guy and I like, you know, all this shit. And he just met me right where I was at. And we continued to date for, I don't know, 18 months, 16 months. And we just got married.
Wow, congrats. That's crazy.
My first like really healthy relationship. And we got married. We we got married on 11/11, so I got married on my clean day.
Wow. That's so cool. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. We
That's
went
crazy.
to Africa for 2.5.
Really?
We went to the east coast of Africa.
Oh my God.
And it was such a wonderful experience because I could never travel. Like in active addiction, I couldn't leave the bathroom. Like there would be cats walking outside, and I knew that they were like undercover cameras. Like their eyes were like cameras and stuff. Like the paranoia was through the roof. Like I couldn't travel. I couldn't leave. If the dope man was like 10 minutes away, like there was going to be this like vicinity that I had to be in for him. And even one time when I came from West Virginia to Florida and I'm in my car, I'm like in Columbia, South Carolina in the hood. And my mom's like, where are you? And I'm like, Columbia. She's like, who do you know in Columbia? I'm like, Boo. She's like, who? Boo who? And I'm like, he's just my friend, Mom. And then I had to call and get money to like make it to Florida because all the money I had bought crack from Boo. And just crazy shit. But I finally found a man who knows my whole story.
Mm-hmm.
We're good together. He works hard. I work hard. My daughter is taken care of. I trust him 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to peep around corners and leave cameras on, and I don't have to worry. I know that he loves her and he loves me. And my mom loves him. She's never liked any of my boyfriends in my whole entire life, and she's like crazy about him. But life is good. Life is really good today. And after a 26-year drug addiction, like I did a life sentence in active addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm free today. And I feel like I'm after the comeback of the century.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, and it's crazy because it's like in 5 years. You been clean 5 years?
4.
Not even 5.
Yeah, November I celebrated 4 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. You've accomplished so much in 4 years. Wow.
And I want to keep going. Like, I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
stop. I'm thinking about law school. I don't know if that's what I want to do. I don't want to be like a criminal
Mm-hmm.
lawyer and lock people up. But I do want to like write law and change law. And I love statistics. I love studying statistics and numbers. And I think that way more than 100,000 people a year are dying of overdose. This epidemic is worldwide. I'd like to know how many people are dying. I just went to countries where, we're very privileged here in America. I mean, we don't realize how, toilets are such a luxury, and medicine, and travel kills prejudice, and travel also educates. Like to have that lived experience and to go other places where people don't have the benefits that we have here. I want to keep traveling. Like we're going on a cruise.
Wow.
I'm going to go to the Bahamas. I got a passport. I can vote.
You can vote as a convicted felon?
I'm a convicted felon. I have a voter's registration card. I voted in the last presidential election. Cool. Yeah. And that, to me, that's huge. I have rights. And I don't have like the right to bear arms yet, but I think I might go get it. Because I grew up in West Virginia.
Yeah.
I can hunt and shoot and, all that. This is what we do.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Life is cool.
I'm happy for you. That's such a good story. Hey, I want to appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much. It was probably like one of my favorite podcasts. It was so good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you got
an
amazing story, and I hope you continue to keep inspiring people. And so happy you're back in school and married. It's crazy.
And today, 5 years ago, my brother died of a heroin overdose. And I try to do something every day to every January 8th to honor him. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together until this morning when I woke up. So thank you for having me on this monumental day to show people that hell does have an exit. You don't have to die, the death of an addict.
Thank you. Love you.
I love you. Thank you.